All right, here we go. Yeah, Fish and Fix. We're definitely going to get jiggy with it tonight. It'll be a lot, no shortage of jig talk. So that'll be good tonight. What's up, Bob? What's up, Shadow? YouTube, cuz good to see all you guys. Let us know how the volume and the sound and the video looks. How are you tonight, Corey?
Doing good, doing good.
Awesome.
Just waiting for the partner to get on.
Yeah. He's that's all right. I'm sure we'll catch up.
Yeah,
Doug says we sound good. It's just a good time of year though, right? I mean, like you're in Wisconsin, we're in Minnesota, ice out's been out for a few weeks now. Like this is the most, outside of Christmas, this is the best time of the year.
Yeah, early spring, warm weather in Wisconsin, and it looks, I mean, the water temperature is already almost 50 degrees, so it's a good time to be up here ready to fish. So
yeah, I went out this weekend just to make sure there was no gremlins in the bass cat and get everything wet, and sling the little 2-inch power grub on a jig, little crappie jig, and water temps were low to mid 50s already on a metro lake that I was on, at least at the surface temp.
yeah, yep. Yeah, we were seeing the same thing when we went out last weekend on the Mississippi. It was, I mean, after the cold at night, it was 46, 45 to 47 in those different backwaters. And then, I mean, just off the main channel to the backwaters, and then midday, it was already 50 degrees. So
Very nice.
It's going to be stabilizing pretty quick.
Yeah, what's up, Sobi? Thanks for tuning in. All right, there we go. There he is. He finally figured it out. Kelly's in the house.
Right.
Matt says he's watching live on 2 screens, so that's awesome.
I can't even get one to.
Nice. But all right, so we have Corey and Kelly. If you guys don't know who this is, they're from Super K Jigs, a small custom jig manufacturer out of Wisconsin. I don't know. Why don't you guys kind of introduce yourselves a little bit and just give us a little info?
Not much more than what you just presented. I mean, Central Wisconsin, we make some quality swim jigs. Everything is done in-house, start to finish. Pour them, paint them, tie them. Everything's hand tied. Quality component. Try to, we know what the big boys put out there, and we try to beat them with their game, pretty much.
Very cool. What about?
Yeah, well said. Yeah, it's I mean, it's nice to be able to have a company that everything's made by us. For the most part around here, we're doing everything in house, like Kelly said, from start to finish. So we can control every aspect of what we put out there. And a lot of times, I mean, like a long time ago, when I would use just a normal swim jig off the shelf or whatever, it could come apart maybe half a season, 1 season, and the thing's falling apart. Where, I mean, I think when Kelly and I got into looking at getting Super K jigs from the old owner, who I knew for a long time, I showed him a jig that I had for 4 years. It had 7 strands left on it that I still caught fish on consistently. And I said, "This is the difference." Yeah, exactly. You have one. I think every Super K jig user has one of those jigs, which is amazing. It's still tied on with a high-end nylon thread on there. It's just crazy how sturdy they are. So it's really a fantastic thing to be able to offer these locally and have such a good product to offer. So
yeah, absolutely. So pretty much, if you order a jig, the guy in the bottom middle here, Kelly, is going to be hand curating, producing, tying, shaping, loving each jig that goes out the door, right?
I don't know if I'd love them.
Some days he loves them. Some days he doesn't love them. I can vouch for that. His hands hurt. But
very cool.
Yeah.
So you guys are central. Like, what I guess, like, what's the closest town or closest lake? So if people are, looking at Wisconsin, where are we?
Yeah, central Wisconsin. So I actually live in Wausau, and Kelly lives down in the Stevens Point, Nelsonville area. So we're right in the middle of the state, basically, centrally located between like the Northwoods and Madison area, pretty much, and east and west, dead in the middle of the state. A few of the bigger lakes, we got Lake Bay around right next to us here. Minocqua Chain is north of us, and there's a few other lakes to the south of us as well. Like obviously Madison Chain, bigger lakes too, Green, bunch of them. So
yeah, for the net guys, I mean, nobody knows Wisconsin, so an hour and a half straight north of Madison.
Very cool. Yeah. Honestly, Matt, it's not just your TV. There's a reason I cut the top off my hats. So it might not just be your 60-inch TV. What's up, Sickness, Sycamore, Caleb? Not yet. That's probably my fault. But yeah, they're pouring lead jigs and hand tied, but we might be working on something to do some custom tungsten stuff. More to come on that, but not tonight. So I think what's up, Debo's Fishing? He says Wisconsin's almost as cool as Iowa.
Right. Except for the
Depends on what we're talking about, I guess. I don't know. But I think, I don't know, kind of talked to Corey earlier. I think we might do a little, like a sneaky little giveaway before the end. So maybe if you guys tune in, stay tuned. We'll cover that in a little bit. I guess maybe we kind of talked about being that handcrafted and hand tied versus, mass produced jigs. But I think there's a little more, and I don't know how much you guys want to talk about, but like what goes into the design of a good swim jig? Like what do you feel like the elements is between you guys and Greg, right? Kind of the science behind this, and I don't know how much you want to share, but maybe talk about like, at least especially from a northern swim jig, right? This is a northern swim jig, but I would say it's a stronger northern swim jig, but this isn't exactly like your Alabama shake southern swim jig. It's more of a northern style. Maybe give us a little like your insights to the details and what you think sets a good northern swim jig apart from maybe just a run of the mill, swim jig. Right.
So Greg did all of the science 10 years into the company. He was probably 20 years into production, behind the scenes of saying, okay, this works, this doesn't work. Very methodical. Should we go wire? Should we go thread? Should we do this? Should we do that? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot into it. Obviously our swim jigs have that light FG12 fiber guard, which is not a standard when you look at most swim jigs on the board. We have that lighter weight, and we're not throwing those thick southern, banks, shorelines that they are down there. So the necessity for having that heavy weed guard to get rid of the weeds isn't there. Our weed growth up here is minimal compared to what it is down there. The other thing, the thread, using a nylon thread as opposed to a wire. With a wire, you always have that little tag at fix up, and just one more thing that's going to grab weeds, and it's going to collect snot, which we have a lot of snot up here. So with the thread, that stuff just rolls right off it. Right. It's a nylon thread. It's 100% waterproof. It's an upholstery thread, so it's a strong thread. It's not, the stuff your mom put in your sewing machine. So there's that. The head shape that's just a head shape that was available. And beyond that, and the colors are the colors. A lot of the colors that we use around here are native to the fish that the bass are eating around here. We have a ton of bluegill, a ton of crappie, a ton of perch up here. So those patterns represent what they're eating. And that's why you see so much of that repetition in our patterns in our lineup.
Nice. Yeah. So let's, speak what you're saying, right? Like the hand tied, like they will chew the skirts off of them before the thread that holds them on there will disappear. Right. So,
yeah. And you can even pull that thread tight. Like I had a northern half peel went off, and you can grab that little piece of thread and even pull it tight if you need to, like in some situations. But like I said, I think I've used these jigs for over 10 years, and I think I had 2 come apart on me total in that whole time. And that was, from like I said, pike bites or dogfish bites, getting that cutting everything right apart, which I don't think you can stop anyways. Yeah, speaking to what Kelly was saying, and the nice thing about using these little the FG12 swim, the weed guards on those two is that one of the things that is one of Greg's missions was he wants to when we sell a jig from the package, we want you to be able to pull it out and just use it right away without having to trim it, without having to trim the weed guard. More for the people that are just getting into fishing and getting a jig, because you can go buy any jig, and some all of us know that if there's tournaments, you buy a jig off the shelf, you have to trim the weed guard, trim the skirt down, probably push the weed guard down a little bit more and bend it closer to the hook. Make sure there's no paint in the eye. There's like 7 things you have to check with a normal jig, and when you buy one of ours, really you don't have to check any of those things. It's all done for you.
You pick your favorite swim jig trailer, which we'll get to, and then you tie it on and you get to business.
Yep.
Yeah. There's a question there, like what is the hook?
We use Gamma Mustad for the most part on almost everything, all the way across the board. We use a 5/0 on our swim jigs, unless we get a custom order, and we can do smaller stuff on there. And Kelly can speak to that better, but I think we've gone down to a 3/0. But for the most part, 5/0s are standard, and we'll do some 4s for people, and once in a while, just even like a 1/0 or 2/0 if somebody calls for something crazy on our custom swim jig section. So,
yeah, but it's a very sticky, sharp hook, and I would say it's a little stouter than most of your northern swim jigs, which I like, especially if you like to throw braid on your swim jigs or you like to use it as kind of a slop lure. I find that this definitely is a stout but still very sticky, sharp, and it's not so heavy that you're not going to get fish using fluorocarbon, in my opinion. And then it's got a very specific line degree tie angle so that it comes through grass and cover well. And as far as colors,
it's really
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's really like you were gonna say, it's really kind of a jig you can throw up there really shallow. You can use it as a slop jig. I love fishing that jig, and especially the quarter ounce version, like 1 to 3 feet and around tons of weeds, using 15-pound fluorocarbon and like a heavy action, moderate stick, 7'1" to 7'3", because you can really lean on them with that hook and not worry about having to pull them through weeds or whatever. I mean, you get a hook in them and they're not coming off.
Yeah, so for sure.
That's what makes the difference maker there. So
this is, I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit more about the jigs. And I guess before I forget, want to thank Arsenal Fishing for supporting the stream. You can always use code HellaBass15, Arsenal Fishing, there are links down below, as well as Super K Jigs. You can use code HellaBass15. So if you guys are interested, if anything tonight catches your eye, besides my coonhound barking in the background, and we'll check out their website. But if you want to give them a shot, you can use that code HellaBass15. And I'm sure if you put something in the notes that you watched on the stream, I'm sure Kelly will take care of you. So that'll be, but yeah, I think I've been using these for years, way back to when Greg made them. It's always been one of my favorite swim jigs. It's just, it catches fish, and I've dabbled with the jigs you can buy at Gainer Mountain and Dick's, and I'm usually very disappointed. There are other good custom swim jigs out there, but I think for me, it's important. Swim jigs, like, there's a lot of good jigs you can buy off the shelf for flipping and pitching and things like that. But to me, swim jigs, that balance, that skirt, that tie, so they swim right, so you get the right action. I think there's a lot more science into your average swim jig than there is your basic flipping jig, from my opinion.
Yeah, I think we do most things different on the swim jig aspect than a lot of companies do, as far as how they tie the skirts on and how everything's set in there, and actually just how repetitive we are on doing the same thing over and over again. as far as how much we are producing, and that just goes what was laid out for us, and then what we've built with Kelly, and how to repeat everything over and over again, the same angle, and the same quality control on the powder coating and stuff like that over and over again. So
Yeah, for sure. Doug asks, I guess let's cover this one first. Chowder does games. What does the K stand for in Super K?
It's not Kelly, I can tell you that. It's actually, to the best of my knowledge, it's for Kazuski, the original owner. So Greg, Greg's last name was Kazuski. So it was.
Yep. And how long have you guys now been in charge of the jig business?
We bought it the end of November 2018.
But otherwise,
yep.
But it's over a decade old, the company itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah. The reputation and every aspect of it has been run through the mill for well over 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. These are stood the test of time for sure. I believe most of your skirts are silicone. You guys do some tinsel. What other types of materials are on your common swim jigs, maybe?
We would do a little bit of living rubber. I mean, I'm not a fan of it. We do have, everything that when we purchased the company, all the patterns came with it, and we kept them on the lineup. There's, the Ice Out, which is a basically completely white jig made up completely of white living rubber and a little bit of tinsel. The Puncher's Chance is black living rubber with purple living rubber. But other than that, pretty much everything is silicone, other than, we do our hair jigs, which is, marabou.
Sure.
But the living rubber and the marabou is just kind of, if I could get away from it, I would, because it's a pain in the ass to work with. But at the same time, that's what the good stuff's made out of, is the stuff that sucks.
Right. So it's not that you don't think rubber is a good option. It's you just don't like to tie it.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, it makes a spectacular jig. It's just, it's a whole different animal when it comes to working with it.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I saw there's 70 standard colors for swim jigs. Is that what I read?
I think we've got 40.
Or is it 40?
40
Yeah.
Maybe it's 40.
40.
Right.
There's probably 70 hidden somewhere.
40 patterns, but in 2 weights. So, that makes 80 combinations.
And if you can't find something that you want in those 40, which there's probably something there that'll catch fish in your lakes in those 40, I'm pretty sure. You have this build your own section.
Yep. Which you can make your own stuff. I mean, like this one right here is something that.
Oh, let's here just a second. Hold still. Let me
pause.
Let me blow you up here so we can see it here. All right.
So this is one I just slapped together. So we're working with UWSP, Unions Point, which is our hometown college, and love playing around with colors and options and everything. It's nice to form. And as silly as that, this is their school colors, but I'll tell you what, in the Wisconsin River and the Mississippi River and dirty river waters, that color is spectacular. And
for sure. And
it's proven to be spectacular. Kevin Rue has a color pattern very similar to that is in his elite lineup. So we're not just here to put stuff together. We like to put stuff together, but we also like to make it to catch fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We usually test a lot of the colors out, like the UC release, like with that River Gel, for example. We tested that for almost a whole season before that got put into the lineup. And then we're, like a couple of the other perch colors that we play with. We have a couple that we're still testing from last year that, work really well. It's just you want to make sure that they work in more than just one situation here and there,
Right.
So
yeah, basically there's a custom section. So if you've got a jig that you love, if you got a jig that you have a lot of confidence in, that's a flipping jig, you can describe it. You can attach a picture with your order, and Kelly will whip it up for you. And you can pick your size and your hook and whatever you want. So not a lot of places you can do that.
Right. And, I'll be honest. I mean, most of those custom requests come from, competing patterns.
Right.
And, I don't try to duplicate them to a T or anything. I'm not trying to steal anything. But, if you've got a pattern that you like and you just want a better, a hand-tied jig with a different hook, a different weed guard, a different situation, we can do it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Trying to saying I'm thinking of here, but flattery is the most,
yeah. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
There you go. That's the one I was looking for.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, the crappie color does look nice. I can actually pull that up. I got one here. If you want to see it in real life, Sycamore, this is one that caught my eye this spring, and I had to order a couple. But yeah, that's that. There's their crappie pattern. And for you guys that don't know, like big bass love to stock crappie schools. Like this is a big deal for people that chase big fish with swim baits and things like that. They key on crappie chasers. So having a crappie swim jig in your boat probably ain't the worst plan in the world.
Yeah, it's a good color.
Let's see. JJ's got a good question. Anything else changed besides the owner since you guys took over? Besides, you guys are way better looking than Greg.
Depends on who you ask about that. Though the one thing we did change, and really the only, I think, major change that we made was that we went to a preformed bait keeper on the jig. Greg used to actually hand cut and hand bend every one of those. And Kelly and I did that for about the first couple of months, and then had 78,000 puncture wounds in our hand. So we decided to find the best alternative. So we went with the same one that all the really super high end jigs go with. And
Sure.
that's just, I mean, it was kind of a standard call for us. Greg's always had a really cult following with those jigs, and was able to keep up with that kind of demand. But that was a lot of time invested in just cutting those keepers for those jigs. And that was the biggest change that we made. And that was really the only change that I can think of that we made, unless Kelly can think of something else, but that was pretty much it. So,
I mean, honestly, that was only on the swim jigs. We still cut and bend everything on the footballs, the kaplunks, the skipping jigs. Those are all hand cut, hand bent keepers on everything else. I changed a couple of head colors, but other than
Sure.
that,
yeah, I mean, you've updated some color patterns, you've added some stock patterns.
Yeah.
I mean, like, sure, but like,
as far as quality and components and stuff like that, no, absolutely not. I mean, I'm pouring 1/4 ounce jig at a time, just the same way Greg was doing it for years.
Yeah, if maybe kicking out a few more,
Yep.
if nothing else, hopefully.
I might be pouring more of them, but I'm only doing one at a time.
Yeah. A couple people have asked, are there any like local stores in Wisconsin that actually carry the jigs like retail that they can go walk in and get them?
Yep. Yeah, there's a small handful, and that number is slowly growing.
Is like there one near Stevens Point, somebody asks?
Yep. So Taps and Tackle, which is kind of a new upcoming thing. Anyway, it's Bottle Stop. If you're local to Stevens Point, you know the Bottle Stop. It's a liquor store. The owner is a big musky fisherman, Matt Lazarski. Kind of he bought the suite next door, and now you can go in there and you can buy your tackle and sit down and have a pint while you're doing it.
There you go. That's like a match made in heaven in Wisconsin.
It's pretty sweet. It's pretty decent.
Yeah. As far as Stevens Point, that would be Stevens Point. Wausau, Chase Outdoors is in Wausau. They carry our stuff. Then you start working over towards the west. Red Wing, we have Four Seasons Outdoors.
Okay. Sure.
Rice
So for you pool 4 guys, and even for the Twin Cities, Red Wing's not very far away. Four Seasons right there on the river. Yep.
Yeah, and Chris does a great job. Those guys are great over there. They stock a ton of our stuff, and they love it, and they stock it for that reason. Rice Lake, you get up over into that Hayward neck of the woods. 419 Outdoors, it's got a nice selection over there. And there's a nice big outlet store. There's a chain store in La Crosse that I won't bring up because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, but
it rhymes with Rick's, I think.
I think there's a big national store rhymes with Rick's that has a good selection. And
that's one of the big changes we're making is getting into all those stores. And trying to increase that presence, locally, more local, regionally on that aspect of it. Just making sure that people can go to a local store and get our stuff around here. With Greg at 419, he's been a fan of our jigs for a long time. They have a huge kind of following over in that area. And we just want to make sure that we can walk in, like a kid can walk in and grab stuff off the shelf if they see us online or they see us on the podcast, because that's where I think I got my stuff from, was a little sporting shop like that back in Stevens Point back in the day downtown. Was just a place just like that. So I think that's where, we want to be in a lot of those, and we'll be increasing that presence even more coming up this year.
Yeah,
so,
very cool.
Now we have the packaging squared away, and Kelly's been working hard. He's got new packaging. We've gotten UPCs figured out. So it's been a building process since we bought the company. And then all of a sudden, you buy the company, and then a year and a half later, you have like the weirdest year of all time, really, for everything. And trying to navigate and grow through that aspect has been a challenge, but it's also part of the game, right? You can't really change it. So just keep plowing ahead. So.
Yeah, very cool. And as far as what's the typical turnaround time for orders? Few days get them shipped. What's the
average website order a day, 2 days tops, right, usually.
So you order on a Monday, you should have them for your derby the next weekend.
If you're up in the north, local Midwest, I can't, once they go in the mail, it's out of my hands.
Sure.
So I've put stuff in on a 2-day shipping, and it's taken 7 days to get there. But I've also put it in there for a 5-day shipping, and it's there the next day.
Yeah. So, Post office is funny like that.
So it's out of my hand. But as far as our end of it, I generally, as soon as I get the order, it's being attended to immediately.
Yeah, cool. I agree. Backlash. I think you'll see some swim jigs being flying around at the Sabine. That's definitely something to watch out for. This is a good question. What's the best all-around weight for swim jig? I think for where I live, and I would guess that you sell the most of, is a 1/4 ounce. Is that what you guys see, or?
That's what that's been my go-to forever, is the 1/4 ounce. As far as Kelly knows, I always have one tied on, at least one. 3/8 is kind of like if I'm fishing deeper water, but with the I think 1/4 ounce. I mean, you can do everything with 1/4 ounce swim jig depending on how fast you reel it, really, and you'll get a little rise if you try to fish it deeper than 4 feet if you crank it too fast, but. If you rig your trailer right, you can fish the 1/4 ounce down to 4.5 feet.
Yeah, a lot depends on what your trailer is and how you rig it, for sure.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll be honest. Yeah, I mean, from my end of being able to see the sales and do that stuff. Rarely do I don't get a lot of fluctuation in, or if somebody's ordering 3/8, that's what they're ordering. If they're ordering per ounce, that's what they're ordering.
Sure.
But as far as those two numbers being ordered, they're honestly about even.
Okay. Interesting. So you got your 3/8 guys and you got your 1/4 ounce guys, is what you're saying.
And you
Definitely.
don't, when the 3/8 guys come in, they don't order quarters, and vice versa. So it's just, it's a preference, and it's, you tailor it to your preference and your body of water. Lakes, if you're fishing currents, if you're fishing paddle tail, fishing menace grubs, it's hey, fish what you're comfortable with. That's how you're going to catch them.
Yeah. A lot of times for me, it comes down to what size. Like if I want to throw something like a bigger swim bait trailer, like a Gambler Easy, right, or a full size dipper, and I need to, not be super shallow. I mean, I will throw those on like a 1/4 ounce if I'm really shallow, but sometimes,
Right.
Like when I went to Gunnersville, I ordered a bunch of 3/8 ounce, so that I could throw a bigger swim bait on the back of it and still cover water and keep it moving as a search bait. But normally 1/4 ounce menace grubs, single tail grubs, little dippers, things like that. That's probably more my bread and butter.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that let's expand upon that a little bit. There's some questions here. You guys, and we haven't even started talking about bladed jigs yet, but what do you guys like? I think for trailers, I mean, back in the day when I first started throwing swim jigs, right, it was right here. Like this is almost anybody back in the day threw was a single tail grub like this.
Yeah.
I would say that, this style is starting to become a lot more popular.
Rich, I think that's back in the day.
What's that?
I think that's all we had back in the day.
This is all we had to put on the back, sure.
Yeah.
Or a double tail, right? Your choice was a single tail or a double tail grub.
Yeah.
But today, what do you guys? I mean, you guys, obviously do a lot of field testing, throwing your own jigs. What are some of your favorite swim jig trailers, and when and why?
I'm on your boat. I am the menace grub. Like I threw like some kind of double tail menace grub bait. Like 99% of the time, 90% of the time, I throw a rage craw once in a while when I want more thump on it, or I need to, like you said, like really get up high in the water column, or sometimes throw a shad type bait. But I mean, really, it's a menace grub, and you can just rig it sideways if you want to imitate like a bait fish type thing. But yeah, I mean, I'd say most of mine have menace grubs on them. Used to be curly tails, Yamamoto's, but it's just changed. The menace grub made it easier to fish shallow with it, in my opinion, and bring it over cover. So
yeah, and I kind of got on the same school with that. I mean, the beauty of the menace grub is you can rotate it to suit your needs. If you want to fish deep, set it up vertical. If you want to fish flat, run it horizontal. You get good action on it. I mean, I will say I'm really liking the action on this new Woggle trailer that we have coming out. That thing has just got a stupid, weird action to it that I haven't seen any other trailer put out. I'll try to grab one here in a little bit, but that thing's great. And the paddle tails are good. There's tons and tons of paddle tails out there. I'm not a curly tail guy. I really don't like them. I fish a lot of swim jigs, so a curly tail just doesn't do it for me. But and same with the craw. In a swim jig, I don't like the craws that much. They've got their place and on different jigs, absolutely. But on a swim jig, paddle tail, menace grub, that's usually what I'm throwing.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was like. I don't know where my menace grubs are. I wanted to talk about that because that is a great point.
Corey's got the Woggle up there.
This menace grub.
Yeah, you're a little frozen.
Yeah, this is a menace grub here.
Yep. Yeah. And I was gonna so like what we were saying
And
is
then you got
Corey's freezing up a little bit here. But if you want to fish shallow, right, you can rig this thing on the plane so it's like I guess perpendicular to your hook.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then so like that'll allow you to come, over pads, over duckweeds, fish it shallow where it, lifts the jig. But if you rotate it 90 degrees, right, so that's more like this, it knifes down and you can fish it slower, deeper, come through grass even better.
Yep.
And I would say, yeah, I mean, like there are times that maybe I'll go with like a Rage or something that looks like this, right? But that's kind of nichey when I'll do that. The one advantage, the other thing is like if you throw something with a wide tail, right, that comes out like this, if you're like fishing it through reeds and pad stems, right, that'll help keep your hook. It almost like, right, will help it come through. And that is the same for bladed jigs that is for swim jigs. So you can do some different things with your trailers to either get them deeper, stay shallower, deflect off cover better so the hook doesn't have a chance to cook, if you're on wood and things like that. So there's a lot to consider. I think, these are probably the most popular and they definitely catch fish like little dippers and things like that. But I think when you're fishing in a place like La Crosse where there's so much pressure that I think they see so much of this that sometimes going to a menace grub or back to a single tail grub can actually be showing the fish something different instead of what everybody else is throwing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And one thing, you know what, I'll tell you with the paddle tails, don't get all tied up in which way you're putting them on. Don't like, oh crap, I put that on upside down. You know what? I've put a paddle tail on upside down and caught fish days, not even knowing it was on upside down.
Sure. I will say they do typically, a paddle tail will cause your swim jig to roll more, right? It'll throw a little more roll into it, which sometimes you want, sometimes you don't. But that is like that roll can sometimes cause you to hang up more. I mean, these don't have like super stout. So if you're in reeds, pads, in brush, sometimes a paddle tail is not good because it's going to want to make that jig roll more, which is going to expose your hook a little bit. So that's something to consider. They are not at Omnia yet, but I have mentioned that to Omnia that it might be a good fit for them. So stores in Minnesota, I'm a little bit behind on the chat, but we talk about the Four Seasons and Red Wing. Let's see, let's get caught up on the chat here. What's up, Simon? Yeah, wouldn't it be a lot better if when that crazy singing, dinging bell truck came through the neighborhood, they were selling swim jigs and tackle instead of ice cream?
Pretty sweet. Thought about that.
Right. We're thinking of doing something like that on the. We're gonna go down.
Very cool.
For a store.
Yeah. My dog is like going crazy tonight. This is this is a good question, Kelly, for you probably more so. Like, obviously, there's 40 colors out there. What are some of the heavy hitters that you see a lot being sold?
I mean, you've got your classics. Your chartreuse white, river white's a killer. I'll tell you, one of the most unexpected killer sellers is, and this is in the Klaken, but it's also in the swim jig, is this guy right here, the pink elephant. This thing was kind of a half-ass joke, but semi-serious, and that thing, we sell a ton of those, and repeatedly to the same guys over and over again. It is a stellar. I knew I gave you one of those. It is.
Yeah.
Don't be embarrassed to have that in your tackle box. It catches fish. Uh-oh. I think you muted yourself there, Rich.
I tried to mute my dog, but where, I mean, is it like clear water? Is it dirty water? Is it a certain forage? I mean, what do you think people are using this more?
Honestly, I can't. I mean, it works great in the Wisconsin. It was born out of the Madison Expo show, our very first year. Tons and tons and tons of guys came up to us. Do you have any pink jigs? Do you make a pink jig? Pink is spectacular down here in the spring. It was like pink was Madison's red, you know? And we're like, well, shit. I went home and I was like, all right, I'm going to put together a pink jig. And sure enough, and that thing just is stupid good. And so, yeah,
we went out to test it.
Dirty water, probably more effective, but I haven't thrown it in a lot of clear water.
Sure.
But I know the guys that buy them, they come back and buy more and more and more and more. And we, so much so that we spread it over into our Clacken lineup. And we've sold a ridiculous amount of Clackens in that color too.
Very cool. Do you think, I mean, have you heard, like, are they throwing mostly like a white or a bait fish imitator, or are they going more of a bright color as a trailer, do you think, or do you know?
For sure. I think most guys are, they're throwing a straight white paddle tail on for the most part. Just like you would with, our river white or our antique shad or any of those other bright patterns. Most people tend to match their trailers to their jigs. I mean, which isn't always a good thing. I mean, I tend to, for the most part, every now and then I like to go on that just absolute. I'd throw a black trailer on that every now and then.
Sure.
Just to throw that difference out there. And some days that's what you need. But yeah, I think for the most part, you're going to find that they're going to, most people match their trailers to their jigs or vice versa. They match their jigs to their trailers.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Have you ever been compared to Chris Lane in the past?
Who's that? Chris Lane?
Yeah.
No idea who that is.
Chris Lane is he used to be an Elite Series. He's a Bassmaster Classic champion. Fishes on the BPT now.
I never saw it before, but I can see it now.
Must be that little goatee patch thing. Anything new coming down the pipeline?
Nothing spectacular right now. I mean, a couple new patterns kind of in the basket. There is one product that I'm sitting on, but it's got a lot of research. So I wouldn't expect to see that for 2 or 3 years probably. But if it does happen, it'll be fun. Beyond that, as far as the bass lineup goes, we're just going to keep on ticking. Don't fix what's not broken. So,
yeah, we added a few things to start with. As far as the Clacken line, we wanted to get in that game, and then the spinner baits as well. But I think for the most part right now, we're just going to try to make sure that we have all the production, all the quality control we want, and then go from there. So,
yeah, he's not the only one. But I feel like there's a meme coming soon. I don't know. We'll see.
So, I mean, and the other thing, there's a lot of COVID is actually hitting us harder this year.
Okay.
As
from a supply standpoint or from demand?
From material wise.
Raw materials.
Yeah. So, our orders and demand has been spectacular. Our ability to get the materials to meet those demands has been going down pretty hard. So it'll be interesting to see how we get through this year. I mean, we've bulked up pretty good. I think we're going to be fine. as far as doing website orders, and the stores that we're, working with this year won't be a problem. But I will tell you, I was surprised to see how I thought it was gonna be a piece of cake this year after last year, but it's lingering a lot longer than I thought it would. So,
but you're not encouraging people not to use the code, and they should still order though.
They should order the crap out of stuff. I've got it's on the website. It will be built.
All right. So if you missed it earlier, there should be a pinned comment on both the Facebook and the YouTube stream with a link to their website, as well as the code HellaBass15, so you guys can save 15%. And then make sure you drop Kelly a little love note. Let him know you saw it on the stream, and then I'm sure he'll do something for you. This is a good. We haven't got into this. So this is a good segue. What do you guys think is prime time swim jig situation? Like, when do you guys? I mean, there is almost no bad time. They're a year-round catcher, but when do you guys like really get excited or really salivate about throwing a swim jig? Or maybe their top couple times, or what are those key windows for you?
For me, it's a confidence state. So it's just one of those things that's always on the line. It's the first thing I grab, and if it's within the first few casts, it's either on or it's not, and it's time to switch. So, like you said, it's hot all year. I mean, it's especially good in the spring, and and it's when it's on, it's on. So it should be something that you should. Hey, if this isn't working, grab this and throw it. If your jerk bait's not working, throw a swim bait. If your swim bait's not working, throw a spinner bait. But when you find that bite, roll with it. And I'll tell you what, when the swim jig bite is on, it is on, and it is on hard.
Yeah. How about you, Corey?
Yeah, I really do like 2 seasons for me is spring and fall. I mean, I like it right, like anywhere now through the spawn. I love seeing it when I throw it up shallow, seeing a wake come eat that thing. Like one of the best things, you see the wake before you even feel them. And then I like throwing in the fall too, and just going out and finding them right around the weed edges, and when they group up, and you can go catch 50 or 60 fish in a day on a swim jig, and just let it, go through a couple of bags of trailers. Those are the good days. I mean, for me, that's what I like. I just, you can tie it on and run it all day in a situation like spring or fall usually. Summertime, like Kelly was saying, it's always on my line, and it's one of my baits. If I'm having trouble or something, I can't figure something out, I'll go to the bank and just start chucking a swim jig around anything I can find, but yeah, spring and fall for sure. So
yeah, for sure. And I think if you fish rivers a lot, like there's almost never a bad time to throw a swim jig on a river, unless it's like almost frozen. But other than that, it's pretty darn good. As far as lakes, a couple times I like is right after ice out, like just creeping, basically slow rolling it through the mud right when the ice comes out can be really deadly. Them fish, they come shallow really quick. They don't necessarily want to chase it and hunt it down, but if you just creep that thing, you can get some really big bites and some good days. The bluegill spawn is a really good one as far for like a peak activity, I think. Getting around covering water during the bluegill spawn and the crappie spawn can be really good. And then anytime you got fish on weed flats, you can fish them deep and things like that, but anytime you're covering water where bait fish and bass are on the flats, I think it can be really good. And as far as like conditions, like, on your windy days, sometimes the spinnerbait and the bladed jigs can be really good, or the overcast days. When they stop biting that, a lot of times you pick up that swim jig, and then that's where you flip the switch the other day, and it's like they never stopped biting.
Right. Yeah, I think it's sometimes you talked about that. It's like either they want the thump from something, or they just want something silent with just a little bit. I mean, and it's just like a person, in different moods for the day. I mean, you can be, if they're not eating the swim jig, you can throw something with a blade and they will come right back and eat it, and vice versa. Some days you're throwing that blade and you're getting that weird strike, or they're not hitting it right. You throw a swim jig in there and it's down their gullet, so it's I think it's a really good, like you said, subtle bait to just come through and sneak up on the fish at the time. And another, yeah, like you said, summertime, deep weeds too, with like a 3/4 ounce swim jig, you can just slow roll that thing right through those, 8 to 10 foot weed clumps. And that's, bass don't see a lot of that, and they don't expect it. So works well.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll know when the swim jig is on, because it'll be like, you won't see the swim jig when you flip them in the boat. It'll just be like back towards their crushers when they're eating it well. You can't pull it away from them.
You just feel the one bite.
Yeah, it's just like doop. Like you couldn't shake them if you tried in a million years. They're not letting it go.
I call it the click, because you just feel the click.
Yeah.
Like you just know he's got it. So.
For sure. This is a good question from Ricky here. What do you guys think? Is there a different retrieve for bladed jigs versus swim jigs? And then we can segue into the clacking a little bit based on this conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I think Corey does the same. You know, a short cadence, you know, not like a jerkbait cadence where it's that much of a pause, but you know, Corey taught me, we got together fishing trout streams, and twitching Rapalas was everything you needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of carried over to swim jigs. So yeah, you can toss it in, straight retrieve, but having that, you know, twitch, that twitch retrieve, constant twitch retrieve, without a pause in it, but just that little jerking motion gives it that little undulating motion. You know, it makes the skirt do a little bit different than just pulling it through the water. And it makes a big difference. You know, I mean, if they don't hit it right away, they're, from my perspective, if they don't hit it on the drop or within the first quarter crank, you got to give them something to look at. And if it just looks like a stick getting pulled through the water, they're not going to chase it. I mean, I've never seen a fish literally go straight through the water. They've got motion to them. So that little bit of twitch to your retrieve gives that jig that motion. And I mean, it makes a big difference. I mean, with a bladed jig, the blade gives it the motion, so that's an entirely different animal.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I agree. I do like 3 retrieves with my swim jig. Really, it's usually one of 3. It's like either a straight retrieve, you know, and I'm just running it into cover and letting that deflect the jig itself.
Right.
Or I'll do, like Kelly said, the twitchy retrieve, where if I'm on kind of open water on like a weed edge where there's nothing to bump or deflect off of, I'll kind of give it twitches all the way back for the most part. And then if they're biting it, but biting it weird, sometimes I'll even just throw it out and I'll just kind of just pump it back, where it's just like almost like a stroking the jig, like a stroking jig retrieve, like where it's kind of like bouncing off the bottom and just acting like a crawfish, even though it's a bluegill. I throw bluegill color 80% of the time with my swim jigs, because it's like the standard forage, I feel, around here. But yeah, I had a day where I couldn't catch them on the swim jig. Also, I started stroking it. It was like I literally have video of it. It's like 5 casts and it really just pounded it, like 2 pulls and they had it. You know, it's like, well, they just wanted it different, I guess. You know, as far as the swim jig goes. So there's so many different ways. I mean, but yeah, like Kelly was saying with the bladed jig, I mean, that's just about water column. I think if you find out where they're sitting at, if they're right above the cover, you need to tick cover with it. You just slow down and just reel it slow until you feel your cover, you know? So.
Yeah. So I guess one thing that's new since Greg, right? I don't think the clacking was around when Greg was around. So how did the clacking come about?
Necessity, I guess.
I mean, yeah, everybody was asking us to do something with them. We wanted to do something with them.
Mm-hmm.
We just didn't really know how to, because of all the different rules and regulations that were involved in that bait. So brainstorming one day, we were just talking because we can take everything, we can deconstruct everything, and we had a couple of jigs that had open eyes, and we were talking about it, and Kelly's like, "What if we just put it together in a kit and just sell it as a kit?" So we're not, we think that I mean, we're all these are aftermarket products, anyways. We're building everything from scratch, but yeah, you get it just like that, yeah, and I think it's just we wanted to do it because we're using them all the time. We wanted to build our own product. I don't want to use somebody else's. I mean, for what you pay for a jackhammer, to be honest with you, it's. I mean, the only difference is this is not a titanium head for the most part. I mean, that's really
actually
it.
jackhammers are lead. They're not tungsten.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Only the JDM ones are tungsten. That's a common misnomer.
Yeah, see, so even I didn't even know that. So like, so basically, you're talking about twice as much cost for no difference except for a blade, the blade thickness and the blade shape. And sometimes I want different, than what is standard out there. So
Yeah, like last weekend when I kicked your ass.
yeah, that time. So
yeah, so I mean, you basically get these, right, and then you just slide your own blade on there, or you can do whatever you want with it. There's no instructions, but
right. Oh, there's. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we sell a jig with an accessory. Do what you want with the accessory.
Right.
And that's what it is.
Right. And so there you go. If you want, you tighten it up a little bit with the pliers, and then you have a direct connection that can hit the head, right? It can click, it can make that sound as needed.
Yep.
You get a nice stout hook. You get a super light weed guard, which is a differentiator, right? And a nice bait keeper and a hand-tied custom skirt in just about any color you can imagine if you want it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The custom options on the tab, so.
Yeah, that weed guard does make quite a bit of a difference too. I mean, I fished a lot around wood, and I told Kelly, I'm like, if you fish a bladed jig around wood, you know that they like to get hung up sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need a lot of, like, that weed guard doesn't do a lot, but it does enough to keep it off that wood sometimes. And it's, if it hangs up 1/3 less times, that's fine for me, because they were going to hang up anyways if it just clicks it off. And that weed guard isn't strong enough to stop any kind of bite that I've noticed at all, as far as like inhibiting anything.
Super. There's nothing like.
Yeah.
That's the weakest weed guard we have in our arsenal.
Yes.
Quite honestly,
very soft.
It's smooth. More in a jig than it is to be functional, but it is still functional.
Yeah, that, and if you're around wood or whatever, like, experiment with a trailer that actually has a wide. I mean, like, normally I don't like a lot of action in my trailers, but that is the one time I will experiment. If I'm fishing around heavy cover, I will put something on, like a Rage Car or this Adrenaline Bug that has a little shoulder to it, which one will plane your jig out a little bit so it won't roll as much. So the less it rolls, less chance that hook point's going to be out there. Plus, you've got a little more plastic just to, like you said, just like the weed guard, it gives you a little extra to carry them off, and hopefully that hook point doesn't stick in something besides the fish's mouth.
Did I send you any of those? I know, Corey, you put those up earlier, but I think you were getting your video feed. Put them up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, those things, they don't throw your body a lot, but the action on them, you can see in the tail. They move for how much the jig itself moves. Those things still move accurately,
right? For sure.
And without adding a lot of action to your jig, I guess is what I'm saying. So, but those are going to be, those should be available on the website within the next, I'm hoping this week, by the end of this week or by the end of next week, that trailer should be available. And that thing is, I was impressed. I was like, holy crap. I threw it in the stream and let the current do the work. And the current was making the trailer work.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and so if you guys really feel like you need these, there's no need to go on eBay and pay $30 for a bladed jig of this color. You can get them much more reasonably at Super K.
Right. Yeah. And if you want, if we don't have the color, It's $1 upcharge for a custom color. I mean, I've got thousands and thousands of tabs at my disposal. If we can't get it exact, we're going to get it pretty damn close. I guarantee you.
Basically, Kelly challenged you to give him a color he can't make. I think that's what he just said, wasn't that?
But that's definitely what I heard as well. Yes.
I had to complain of my custom time. I usually get nothing but compliments. So
Very nice. What do you guys like for a swim jig rod? Like, I think both of you, like, is your normal a fluorocarbon to start out with?
Oh
Like,
God, for me, I'm just I'm a keep it simple, stupid, basic guy.
sure.
I've got one 7-foot rod with mono on it, and I use the out of it for everything.
So what pound mono and what's your action of your 7-foot rod, and what's your gear? Run down your setup for like your go-to swim jigs.
It's I think a 7-foot tooth tamer rod. So Tooth Tamer is a local company up here.
Yep.
I've got a Garcia Revo on it.
7-1, 6'3".
I think it's the it's out in the garage. It's the higher,
Like a 7-1, a higher speed. Okay.
I think you got 7.
7-1. And
Is that like a medium heavy, a medium fast action?
I think it's a straight medium. I don't even know if it's medium fast. It's probably a medium fast. It's a little light on the top.
And what, like 15-pound mono, 14?
14-pound fluorescent mono.
Nice.
And I mean that gets me through
Bright
everything.
green, baby.
Fishing tournaments. So remember that. So
All right, so Corey, you're the tournament guy in the team. What's your setup for a swim jig?
Rod and
Yeah, I use 2 different kind of setup. I use like a 7'1" St. Croix, medium heavy. Like I got one of the victories now, trying that out. But like my go-to sticks for a long time have been the Jason Christie series Falcons. Just like the cheap, I got like 4 7'3" heavy medium actions. They call them modern actions or whatever. But man, I like them a lot for swim jigs, and I actually use them for my bladed jigs too. So I have a couple with a swim jig and a couple with a bladed jig on, and I can kind of interchange between those 4 rods. And I usually just run like 8.0s or 6.4 Abus too, like some ALXs I got. So try to keep it simple too. I mean, I find myself overthinking the rod choice. When I got extra 2 of them, I have 4 of them now, the same rod. I can just throw them all in. I just, they're basically all the same. A couple of them have 16-pound, a couple of them have 15-pound, and my 7-1s have 14 or 12 on it, just depending. So,
yeah, I would say I'm pretty similar. Like most of my swim jig rods are either a 733 or a 734 Dobbins. 7-1 reels. I'm usually low on 15 to 17-pound fluorocarbon. Every once in a while on the river, if I'm fishing some gnarly stuff and I'm using it as kind of like a frog follow up, or almost in the place of a buzz toad, right, where I'm like literally bringing it over the top of the duckweed or really gnarly stuff or in the pads, then I'll typically bump up to like a 30-40 pound braid. But
yep. About the same here. I usually, like I said, that 7'3" that it gets considered a heavy action. It's like a medium heavy. So probably like the 735, 734, right in the middle of those. And yeah, it seems to work good like that. As far I got one reel I have rigged up with 20-pound that I keep off to the side, that just in case, like you said, you're throwing just some trees or whatever, and sometimes I'll just throw that swim jig and just let it fall because it's so light, that quarter ounce. They don't see that a lot with that menace grub on there, just that really slow fall. And then you bring it out, almost like a square bill, just swim it out of the wood so slow that it can't get hung up, basically. And they like that.
Do you guys use any different trailers for your clacking, or is it more like the same stuff?
Yeah, I'm usually I've got a Menace Grub color combo that I love on my Klaken, and I've been throwing it for a year and a half now straight. Same trailer. I just
And that
replaced.
is what is this combo?
He won't show you. It's secret. It's like this special color he got made.
There
He's
are
only
no
got, like, a
secrets on the
bag of them.
HellaBass stream. That's rule number one.
He'll show it to you. I got some downstairs. I'll go get it. If nothing else, I got a secret bag of them too.
So it's
He's got
the blue.
All right.
It's
So the black and blue Klaken
trailer.
Right, black and blue, and I will go grab one. Give me a hot second. I got it right
there. So we'll move on to Corey's favorite Klaken trailers.
Yeah, I used to throw, and I still do throw a lot of the missile baits. I forget what it's called now. I had the name of it just a while ago. I forget the name of it now. They have a bag with me. Missile baits. This one, you probably know what it is.
The Shockwave?
Yeah, the Shockwave. That's what it is. Yep. And that is the 4 or the 5-inch. I usually cut a little bit off the head, but I like throwing a big trailer on my Klakens.
All right, so you're a big Shockwave. You like a subtle paddle tail.
I actually use the bigger size for the Klakens, and I just trim off a tiny bit. But that's, like I said, Kelly, we tried that Woggle this year, and it does work good too. But yeah, I like paddle tails a lot on those like green pumpkin, anything imitating a bluegill.
Mm-hmm.
I usually throw like I said, a pretty good sized paddle tail. And then when you start getting into the shad stuff, it's either some kind of like swim bait, like a ribbed paddle tail, or even like I do like the like I said, Menace Grubs again, or that Woggle doesn't have a lot of like drag to it. So if you really want to get deep, it has a lot of motion, just like action to it. It's almost like the old school. It's almost like old school twister tail, like a big twister tail, as far as like just going crazy back there. So,
all right,
pretty standard though. Yeah, he's got it now. He's got the secret color.
So, this is my secret garage sale color.
It's like Listerine color, and he just smokes them on it. I don't know.
So is that not even like a fully available color, or is it like a?
So I found the original one. I found at a garage sale, and then I had a local company, Drastic Plastics, mock it up for me. The color was a little bit off, but I'll tell you, it's been spectacular so far.
So is the Strike King ever made that color, or is it just a kind of a similar custom?
I haven't even looked at the main colors. But
there's no color like that, Rich, that I've seen on Strike King's lineup, and it was they used that aftermarket mold. That's the same kind of kicker mold. But yeah, it's a totally like, for me being fishing as long, I've never seen that color before. It looks like toothpaste. It's like this bluish green, and it literally, Kelly didn't catch a muskie a couple forever before, and last year he caught like 50 of them on that same color pattern. And he goes, he's smashing smallies on it all last year. I don't think the fish have ever seen it before, so they're living that color. So
yeah. For me, so I'll just be honest, I haven't got a chance to throw the Klaken yet, but I'm very excited to throw it. I don't see any reason why it's not going to get bit. But my favorite bladed jig trailers, I basically have two. One is the Menace Grub, which I had one in my hand here a little bit ago. But I like to do it two ways. I'll rig it vertically or horizontally, depending on what I want the action of the bait, whether I'm, a bluegill versus a shad pattern, right? You can rig it both ways, depending on what you want your bladed jig to do. And then the other thing I like is a very subtle paddle tail. So Arsenal makes a tactical minnow that has a very tiny, very light paddle tail. And so normally I did used to use a lot of big paddle tails, but too big of a paddle tail won't allow your bladed jig to act as erratic as it possibly could. I'm a firm believer that if you shoot archery, a bladed jig is similar. You take all the fletchings off your arrow, right? That's when your arrow does this, right? The more fletchings, the more drag, the more kick your trailer has, the truer your bladed jig will run. So if you really want hunting action, something like a metascrub, something like a spunk shad, something very subtle, or trim it off your paddle tail. Also, like you can trim that paddle tail so it's just if you really want that erratic action, that's the way to go.
Yeah, I agree. The bulk of the belly is nice to have because you like to have that big bait. But yeah, you can't have a lot of trailer, like you said, paddle tail can't be a lot. That's why the metascrub is so good because it just gives that subtle action. Yeah, and I have like a metascrub rig up on most of my crawfish, like my crawfish colored, anything like that. And then is it like I said, it's just like you said, it's so versatile as far as a bait. It doesn't affect action. It doesn't inhibit action either. So
yeah, Fresno, if you're new here, this is a HellaBass signature custom, and that's my main deal.
So I have a question for you, Rich.
Sure.
So how much of a necessity do you feel it is to trailer a jig? Say a chatterbait, or say a swim bait, or any of that stuff. I mean, obviously you can go out and you can catch fish without trailering them.
Yeah, that's a good question. I know there are some people that that's a sneaky thing for them to go trailerless. I have not experimented with it. Like it's I mean, every now and then, like if I'm flipping one of my Bass Tech jigs around docks and one steals the pinchers off or the trailer off, sometimes I've thrown back an empty jig and caught them, but I haven't made enough casts with an untrailered jig to really have much confidence in it. I'm sure there's a time and a place. I know people that bedfish often like to throw jigs without trailers on them. Obviously, I've done it with hair jigs, but I still feel more confident when I put like a half-inch piece of Senko on there than I do with, what I mean? Like in my mind, in confidence, a trailer's it's probably a crutch for me, but in my head, it makes more sense. If you guys have experiences or ideas when you do, or I'd love to hear about it because that's just something that I haven't done a lot.
So let's say like a spinner bait. Do you trailer your spinner bait?
Honestly, spinner baits most of the time, I would say I don't put any plastic on them. So I don't know why a blade jig wouldn't be different, right? Like a spinner bait like this. Are there times I'll put a little swim bait on there? Yes, but more often than not, I'm just putting a trailer hook on there and nothing else. How about you guys? I mean, are there times that you don't put a trailer on a swim jig or a bladed jig?
Yeah, when I'm out bank fishing and my trailer got stolen.
But normally you start the day with a trailer?
Yeah, generally. Just, well, not necessarily. I mean, I'll rip out a swim jig without a trailer on it.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes out of ignorance, but I won't think anything less of it.
I actually, like, one of the first times I used one of the big, like, we have that musky Kong swim jig. It's like just a large version of our swim jig, 1 ounce basically. The first time I used one of those, I used a trailerless on the river. You got the beast Kong. I used one of those in the river trailerless, and I caught like 3 muskies on it. In it, because they have that long flowing skirt, and I think that was just enough action, and it was something they hadn't seen before. But I didn't have any trailers with me at all, and I was, I did really well. So I think it's maybe just a matter of, like you said, the right timing, what the fish are looking for. It's all profile half the time too, right? I mean, most of the fish are chasing bait this big, but if they're chasing bait this big, and you need to throw a profile that big. If you throw a jig, you have to almost throw it without a trailer at that point, So you trim it back, trim the skirt all the way back to the hook, and see what happens. It ain't gonna hurt nothing.
In my head, I would have a lot more confidence throwing a bladed jig like a Klaken more than I would a straight swim jig.
I would have zero confidence throwing a straight swim jig. That's just, I would probably, like you said, I would stick a piece of plastic on there just if it was just more just mental than anything. You cut the tails off it or whatever. Still throw it. Probably more for weight. It would feel weird throwing a 1/4 ounce swim jig with no trailer more than probably casting. and reeling more than what I would, than anything else as far as that goes. I feel like I would throw in a paperweight, versus a paper airplane. So a little difference there.
I guess I'm just trying to, reach out to some of these younger kids that are watching this, looking at this, going, "Oh, all right, I got to invest in jigs, and I got to get plastics, and I got to get this, I got to get that." I'm just trying to the efficiency,
Yeah, I would say that.
I think the cool thing now is that the plastics last a long time.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, the thing with a bait keeper like you guys have, that really extends the life. If you really want it, just a little dot of super glue goes a long ways to keeping them on there. And the thing is, like, I see plastics as like an additional level of customization, right? I can take a jig like this and I can put a small green pumpkin menace scrub on it, or I can put a big shad colored swim bait on it, right? And those are like almost two completely different offerings. It's almost like extending the right versus like a crankbait. If I want a different size or different profile, different action, I have to buy a whole new bait. But with like swim jigs and trailers, and you can have a handful of different trailers and different colors and a handful of swim jigs. And I can go from, I can put a black and blue, Rage Craw on this versus a green pumpkin menace scrub versus a white boot tail and have 3 different actions and 3 different baits and 3 different colors without having to buy out a bunch of stuff, right? A handful of each you can do a ton of things with. So I would say you can almost simplify things with jigs and trailers if you're new. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. And that's, and one nice aspect of that is we have that wire keeper, which is so uninvasive that you can reuse that trailer multiple times. You get some of these, I will say, our football and our kaplunks, our heavier weight ones do have that lead barb keeper, so it's a little bit more invasive.
Rips it up. Yep.
But the swim jig keeper, like with me, I probably have more trailers in my tackle box that have been used than aren't used, and you can't even tell. I would grab any one of them and put it right back on. That wire keeper, you put it on, it does its job. You can take it right back off and reuse that trailer again and again and again until the fish annihilates it or steals it. And some, those bigger lead barb keepers, it just blows open the whole front end keeper, and and is the last day you can use it.
Yeah. There's a question about your blue-green shirts.
Blue-green shirts.
Which ones?
Is that your shirt? The performance shirts? I don't know. Is he talking about your guys' shirts?
This guy?
Must be. Or is there a picture of our jerseys up somewhere or what?
I don't know.
Yeah, we have jerseys. We have blue-green jerseys that we have that we wear once in a while, but they're not out there that often.
Let's see. So I think this is so I think maybe so what I'd like to do is let's do a little giveaway, and how you can enter the giveaway is when this video posts up after the replay, go down in the comment and let's just list your favorite color swim jig or bladed jig. That's all you have to do to enter. And then next week's stream, I'll do a drawing for whoever comments. So you basically have a whole week to get entered. So whether you caught this stream live or whether you catch the replay, that's how you can enter. Likewise, you can go use the code that's pinned at Super K Jigs. Use the code, get yourself a discount. And if you mention you saw it on the stream, then I'm sure Kelly he'll gift wrap you a little something special in there too, just to make it like little hearts.
I hand signed every invoice.
So those are the two bonuses in the stream. So for those that have sticked around this long, that's how you can get yourself some extra stuff. Let's see what's new in the chat here. I can't see the so concentrate primary colors: black, blue, red, yellow, pink and white tubes. Lots of good conversation in the chat. just, hey, thanks to everybody that tuned in. We've been 60, 70, 80 live viewers, kind of up and down. So that's been awesome. So we talked about swim jigs. One thing that I saw a comment a little while back that was asked, and we kind of glazed over it. And this is something I want to do more of, and I need to do more of. Like, what is your weight? Like, how do you change your setup, Corey, when you're doing deep swim jigs? Like when you're doing more than 6 feet, let's say, like, do you go to a heavier jig, different trailer, lighter line, the retrieve? Like what to walk that through? Like what are you looking for when you're doing your deep swim jigs?
Yeah, there's a couple lakes that I fish that, you know, if they're not biting that 1/4 3/8 ounce, I actually pull out one of our deep swim jigs, which is a 3/4 ounce, same head, little heavier weed guard, just because you're going to be fishing probably deeper, you know, either submergent, you know, or you know, milfoil type heavier weeds that you have to come through. I usually use the same rod, just pull out the heavier line, and I'll actually make a slightly shorter cast sometimes because you want to have a little bit more close contact with that heavier jig, and you want to be able to kind of steer it through those weed patches. So instead of bombing it, 100 yards because you can't with the 3/4 ounce jig, I throw it out 40, 50 yards, let it fall, count it down, and just swim it through with a really slow retrieve, just a steady retrieve. And I'll kind of, instead of twitching the jig as much, I'll kind of just jerk the handle because I want to make sure I feel everything and don't miss that bite. Cause it's a little bit harder to detect when you're dragging it through that heavier weeds. And I'll just use the same trailer. I usually use the Menace Grub still, keep everything the same on that aspect. So my confidence level is high with what I'm throwing. In the same color, just pull out the heavy head. So.
Okay. And do you rig your Menace Grub more vertical when you're deeper?
On that 3/4 ounce, I don't have to.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's just like you're throwing a bomb out there, So it's just a matter of reeling slow, I think. And if I really know I have to get down to that 10-foot level, I can even throw on the 6/4-to-1 reel, and I'll just reel normally, and it'll just be like an extra, foot a minute slower, basically. So it'll get it down there a little deeper. But yeah, I don't really have a problem with rigging the trailer sideways. I mean, if I'm really fishing thick weeds, then I will, just to get that super slim profile. But I mean, where I'm fishing is big patches, so I'll throw it out either next to it or throw it in the middle and let it fall all the way to the bottom, and then kind of just start slowly swimming it out to give it a different, look. So
sure. And so, do you typically count it down to a level and then reel it in, or do you let it go all the way to the bottom and then kind of lift it and start going?
Yeah, I usually let it hit the bottom, I think, just to get that reaction strike sometimes, because it is a 3/4 ounce jig, so sometimes that thing just falling into the bottom is they're going to hit it. If they're not hitting it, they're looking at it, and then as soon as it starts to just swim away and it breaks through that first level of weeds, that they hit it usually, and like I said, you're not making bomb casts, you can feel that bite better. I mean, because there's a little bit more slack there with the weeds and the fluorocarbon. So, but I've actually snapped a couple off of setting the hook on those hard with a longer rod. Like I used to beef up to throw them, and you just don't need it. So,
yeah, swim jigs. I like a 7-to-1 normally. Like you said, deep swim jigs maybe slowing down a slightly different, but there are times when that swim jig, especially in shallow water, when the bite's hot, I feel like a 7-to-1 is almost a minimum necessity because they will sometimes run at you or run sideways. And a 6'2", 6'3", I had some experiences early on with swim jig, and I learned I got my feelings hurt a lot by missing fish with a slow gear ratio. So I think a 7-to-1, 8-to-1 maybe sometimes, but then you gotta sometimes pace yourself a little bit.
I couldn't begin with a 7-to-1 on a Klaken. Couldn't even keep up with them.
I totally agree with you, Rich. Like, I think 7-to-1's minimum on most swim jigs, and I've had issues with some of these lakes that I fish, like what you said, even with the 8, keeping up with them as they eat it. If you don't have the right rod, and that's why I went back. I used to use a 7-foot-1 a couple of years ago, and I had to actually go back to the longer rod just to get hooks in them sometimes as they're running it. Because when they eat that swim jig, a lot of times if you're reeling it on a good pace, they're swimming just as fast, and they're probably swimming twice as fast to eat it. So you have to take up that, whatever it is, let's say it's 2 feet of slack after they eat it, because they caught up on you before you even knew they hit it. there's just a lot of moving parts there, and like without having that longer rod, I think that really can hurt you if you don't have a longer rod with those swim jigs, especially fishing open water, anything over a 30-yard cast, so.
Yeah, and I think that extra rod length, that extra 3-4 inches is, people are like, oh, was that going to matter? But the thing is, like, you're actually like, let's say you go to 7.4 instead of a 7 foot. Well, your rod tip is actually 4 inches closer. When you swing it back, it's 4. So that's actually 8 inches or more when you're swinging through. So, yeah, and it seems like those ultra shallow fish are the ones that are the hardest sometimes to catch up. They run horizontally. It seems like if you're in 3, 4, 5 feet of water, they'll tend to turn down. But when you're in super shallow water, they can come right. They can't go down, right? And so those are the ones that like sometimes are the hardest to catch up, and you miss sometimes.
Yep, I agree.
You guys got to remember, you have the luxury of being in the front of the boat with that much room to swing. Oh, there's no room.
Yeah, that's why my Raptors already have dents in it from this last weekend, Kelly.
Nice.
Just kidding. I don't care. That's why I have a 2004 aluminum boat, because I park it on rocks if I'm gonna go fish rapids. I just park it on the rocks. That's how I roll. So
Got that riverboat life. You're ready.
Yep.
Nice. Cool.
So yeah, I know if you're gonna fish the creeks.
For sure. So there's been a lot of good questions. I don't know if anybody's got more questions coming up. I'd love to hear them. We can definitely get into that. Yeah, I think, good point, JP. I mean, for me, I definitely would prefer to slow down my my retrieve. And then when the fish hits, I want to have that speed to catch up to them to some degree, within reason. Like, I don't know that we need to be throwing 9 and 10 to 1 rockets, but I'd rather have that 7 to 1 or thereabouts for most of these horizontal presentations for when you need it. So you're kind of more the casual fisherman. Corey, what kind of tournaments or what are you fishing this year? Where can people see you on the lake or the river this summer in competitive action? Like, where would they run into you?
It's not going to be much, but I'm going to be fishing the UMBCS with Greg this year in the lakes, mostly the lakes division over here, Central Lakes. I'm going to fish the Red Cedar tournament. I'm going to fish Mohawkskin. Not going to fish Willow, but fishing Boom, and then fishing last one of the year. I'm drawing a blank to where it is even right now. But we also fish a little tournament up here in Stevens Point called the Up Down. Me and my other partner, Adam. It's a little Stevens Point River deal where it's the upper half one day and the lower half the next day. So it's kind of a cool format. You can win either day or both days, depending on what you do. So it's kind of fun. So just kind of getting casually back into it as far as the tournament scene goes. Last couple of years, my son was born a little early, so it's kind of thrown a monkey wrench into things as far as the tournament plans go. So just trying to get a little bit of that competitive, act. I just like compete and be out there with the guys and, run around and try to catch fish. It's a good time.
It's like sometimes fishing a tournament series is like joining the gym, right? You pay your dues and it gets you out there.
I think it's just about getting out there, like you said. I mean, it's just having a good time. If your plan works out right, you feel great, and if not, you learn something from it. So it's all about keeping everything in perspective and just getting out there and enjoying while you can. I mean, really, right? So that's about what that's how I like doing it. I mean, I like competing. They haven't won anything, but I took second, a couple of cash, some checks and stuff like that. But I think that I do a lot of things my own way too. I've always fished an aluminum boat. I go away from the crowds. I go try to find something different. So I'm not like out there usually trying to set the world on fire. I'm just trying to figure something out, kind of fish the way I want to fish and see if it works out and have a good time doing it. So
awesome.
That's my deal.
That's the right attitude to have. Then your feelings don't get hurt as much when you don't win.
That's right. That's right.
Paula wants to know what you said. Raptors. What do you think of them so far?
I just got to use them for the first time actually out here with Kelly. I like them. I used to be a big Talon guy. I had the 2nd-gen Talons for a long time, but running an express boat, trying to get shallow with that much weight on the back of the boat, I'd actually had custom brackets made for my Talons just to reduce the weight.
Okay.
And went to Power Pole to try those, liked them, but I also like the active anchoring system that the Talons had before. I fish a lot of rivers and rapids, and I noticed that the Power Poles would just lose touch every once in a while. I'd be floating backwards, and I didn't want to float backwards. So I thought that the Raptors were the perfect thing for me. They're still light, but they have the active anchoring. They tie into my electronics, my hummingbirds, and it makes my life easier for the most part on that situation. So I do like them though. Everything's good.
So far,
super quiet.
Obviously.
Like they're the quietest thing on the market. You can't even hear them go down. It's stupid.
Nice. So you think they're quieter than the Power Poles. They have a better active anchor system, and they work with your hummingbirds. So that's kind of your 3 things. Okay.
Yep.
There you go, Sean. What was I going to say? I don't know who drew Tim. I don't know who that is, JJ. Do you know who he's talking about? I don't. JJ probably thinks he's making a joke. He's typically not that funny. But let's see here. There was one question. Is it the same size hook in the 3/4 ounce? What Swim Jigs?
Yes.
Yeah. We still run that same 5/0 in the bass style Swim Jigs. We do have a bigger one. I think Kelly was going to hit on it in that musky jig. We ramp up to a 7/0. So if somebody's really fishing like really big fish somewhere, they can get our musky Kong and just trim the skirt down. And they have a deep swim jig with a 7/0 hammer hook on it. I mean, if you want to go shark fishing or something, we could do an 8/0 for you if you really want to.
We're running 9/0 EWGs now in the musky Kongs.
Yeah. So
nice.
If you're going down to Florida and you're going for 14
alligators,
California, don't be afraid to pick up a Kong.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I guess I didn't watch any NCAA. I didn't watch any, and then I was watching the high school hockey tournaments here in Minnesota with my kids. So this is probably the first year ever I never watched a single minute of the dance. But I'm pretty sure he doesn't have my visor game. So there's that. Appreciate it. The super chat, Sean. That's awesome. Hopefully you saved a few dollars for yourself. I know you've got enough tackle, Sean, but I'm sure you could use a few swim jigs for sure. What's the lightest swim jig you guys do?
I can do down to, I think I can get down to a 1/4.
Well, you definitely can do a 1/4 swim jig.
No, he's not thinking clearly anymore. It's past his bedtime.
It's a mold. Yeah, down to an 8.
Yeah. So they're not on the site, but if somebody wanted to send you a message, they could potentially get some 1/8 ounce swim jigs.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. We've already tested them. They work good. They actually work for trout too. We tested them on trout in a trout stream. It's pretty fun. So.
Yeah. And I've got numbers, tons of different. Just because we're not putting a skirt on it doesn't mean we can't. Our swim bait heads, stuff like that. Our hair jig mold, we can put skirts on those instead of marabou. So if you want a 3/32 ounce swim jig, we can put one together for you. It'll be
if you got an idea, you just send an email to info@Super K Jigs and you'll figure something out for them. Nice.
Absolutely.
Brent says he's excited to try these some of these big baits for his pike fishing. I can tell you, the pike sure love these.
They do. They do.
Because that's the one problem is that you may never wear out a Super K jig, but you can't throw a heavy enough line where they won't eat it and take it from you.
I can guarantee you the muskie in the Wisconsin love this thing.
They love those, yes.
clacking. 43 years without a muskie. I landed my first one last year. I caught over 15 of them on that.
Nice.
Just last.
I caught 2 little tiger muskies this week on a 2-inch power grub on an 1/8 ounce jig head.
I saw your pictures. That was funny.
Yeah, I did that picture.
The other one got away. I went to like grab him behind the head, and he like flipped, and I thought it broke my line, but it actually snapped the hook on my crappie jig. That's interesting. Throwing that heavy of a swim jig up shallow. I mean, I always think you'd have to really be doing that at like aggressive shake, kind of like the Steve Kennedy deal for that type of thing. Shallow wooden weeds with a 3/4 ounce. That would have to be like a very aggressive, like snapping Alabama shake style retrieve, I would imagine, Brendan.
Yeah, I think the most I've thrown up shallow was a 3/8 ounce, and that was what I was throwing up, like a craw trailer. Like I said, trying to keep it pretty high in the column. So,
yeah, cool. I'm excited. I had to go out and sling the 2-inch power grub this weekend, making sure the boat was working, but because of our stupid seasons. But now I'm pretty sure I'm going to head over to Wisconsin or hit the river, definitely will be getting my bladed jigs and my swim jigs wet and covering some water on pool 4 probably coming up this weekend, and I'm sure I'll get plenty of bites, and I'm excited. I don't know. So price point, is there free shipping at a certain point? Or is it flat? I don't know what you guys do.
It's flat.
Flat? Just this way, what, $6 or flat?
5.
5. So you get priority shipping, $5. Fair deal. You get your jigs fast, reasonable price.
Yeah.
There's plenty of value. Like, you guys probably aren't selling these for expensive enough for the amount of labor and love that goes into hand tying each one of them. So
buy it, cover your.
Yes. Buy 10 jigs, then you're only your shipping is 50 cents each, or buy 20, then it's $0.25.
yeah, or you could, yeah. I mean, we have guys in our tackle box. I have a big thick tackle box full of Super K jigs, but I always say that I know a guy that makes them, so
yeah,
I just burn through them. They don't run up fast enough. I tell you, like you said, though. I mean, unless you get them stolen from you, I mean, they just last a long time. I mean, I have a few that I still have a silicone popping out of that, the head. They look like finesse jigs now because the silicone's kind of get chopped off after an inch.
As dumb as that looks, you put a grub or something on the back of that, and they'll still just chew it up. Like, it is ridiculous.
Yeah, that thing is probably one of the best baits you got in your tackle box.
Yeah, they
work
awesome. Well.
Logan, I'm not fishing the BFLs this year. I thought about it. It didn't work out to fish them all, and I don't think it really makes sense to try to jackpot a BFL. The paybacks aren't that great. Hopefully one of these years I'll have enough PTO and time to swing the BFLs because I really do love fishing the river. Do you ship to Canada?
Yes, but it costs a lot of freaking money. So I'm more than happy to accommodate it. But I can guarantee you it's going to cost $20 to ship it. $20 to ship to a pound. So
sure. Okay.
You're going to buy, make sure you buy a pound's worth of stuff and plan on paying $8.
Or you got to have some buddies in New York across the border, Shadow.
Yeah, we are investigating the option of getting a distributor up there, but it's nothing that's going to happen anytime soon.
So Josh sounds like he ordered some earlier this year. So he says he's impressed with them so far. That's awesome. Glad you like him, Josh. He says big orders are not a problem for him. So, hey, Shadow, if you want to meet me here, I'll order them at my house and I'll show you how to use them. So if you just got to come on over.
Great. So what's your next big tournament? What's your next big tournament coming up?
So what I'm planning to fish this year is I'm going to fish the Minnesota TBF Team Trail.
Yeah.
Which is a buddy circuit. you can go fish like the NBAA, right? It's like the FLW or the MLF version of the Bass Nation stuff. So we'll fish Wabasha, and then we fish Big Stone out on the South Dakota border. Then we fish we fish Vermilion, and then we go out to Big Stone, and then we fish Coronas, and then we fish Clearwater. I'll also fish the Minnesota Bass Nation State Tournament, which will be out of Wabasha this year, which I'm pretty excited about. Like I don't have a ton of experience in April down there, but the way the weather's shaping up, it should be a pretty good shallow swim jig bite. Like then fish shouldn't have to worry about a lot of pre-spawn current seams for smallies and stuff like that in 3 weeks. But summertime on the river, I'm looking at my chops for the state tournament there. Then I got a couple tournaments on Green Lake. That's where the TBF is, out by Spicer, Wilmer. That's kind of a smallie lake. So those are the main ones. And then if I make the semis for the TBF, that would be in Sturgeon Bay in September, which I've never been to. It's probably not the best time to go out there, but it's a place that I definitely want to go out and fish. And then if for some reason somebody backs out, I'm the alternate for the Bass Nation Minnesota team out of La Crosse. So if somebody backs out, hopefully the first week of September, I'll be there. But
nice.
There
you go.
Some places to fish, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So nothing national this year. Just
I mean, not unless I get into that lacrosse derby and then make it to nationals again. But yeah, there's no path forward at this point.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
But and then out there, just hopefully creating a ton of content, just like last year, right? Just going out and doing some fun videos and practice videos and tournament videos and doing some cool stuff. So I don't know, maybe I can meet you guys sometime and we can go find some sneak holes halfway between us and do something fun that way.
Yeah,
there are a few of those out there.
Trying to put together weekends with guys, like you, Kevin, Burley, all those guys, even Debo would love to get down there and go screw around down there, anything like that. But yeah, so just checking the schedule, seeing where you're going to be.
Yeah. It's kind of full, but not super full. I would say as long as I can work around my kids' hockey and soccer and gymnastics, that's probably the bigger hurdle in my tournaments at this point.
They do tend to.
Yep.
For sure. And you're fun fishing and tying jigs. That's your schedule, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Fun fishing, tying jigs, hanging out with my kiddo when I get a chance, throwing trout fishing right out the back door, which is my bread and butter. That's where that's where my passion is. I'm a spin cat, a spin fishing trout fisherman. I love trout fishing. Put me in a pair of waders and give me a 6-foot spinning rod, and I'm ready to go.
Nice. Them hair jigs you experiment with and work for trout at all?
Oh, they will. Absolutely.
Have you seen this guy's Ned Heads pictures, like of him catching 20-inch browns with Ned Heads and stuff last fall? He's out using our Ned Heads, just crushing like 20-inch browns by my dad's place down there. I'm like,
so is your trout?
Dude. Like that's fun. Those trout. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, is it trout fishing just for fun and sport, or are they table fare as well?
Not very often. Occasionally, I mean, if there's a request, yes. If somebody's like, "Oh, can we have trout for dinner?" Yes. That's usually when I can't catch anything. If there's a request,
when there's pressure.
So,
nice.
But no. Beyond that, I'm very much put into catch and release. Always catch and release.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, Tim, I think if you're learning the swim jigs, we definitely covered some good topics and some good nuggets. So I think there's from rod and reel setups to line to types of trailers, when and where. I think it's definitely worth the replay. You can watch the video replay. You can also listen to the podcast version. Just search HellaBass in your favorite podcast app. There's some giveaway. So for those that are tuned in late, If you leave a comment after the stream posts the replay with your favorite swim jig, bladed jig color, enter to win a prize. We'll do a drawing next week. And then the pinned comment, HellaBass 15, will get you an automatic prize by getting you a sweet discount on some awesome swim jigs. So that's all in the replay for those that came late. Yes, Brendan, they come separate. So you just have to slip the blade on yourself and pinch it ever so slightly with the pliers, and you're good to go. So they are connected directly. Once you're done attaching it, it's a direct connection with plenty of head contact on the blade. You just have to slide it on yourself and pinch it down. That looks like the most awkward glass to drink beer out of. Like it's gonna like spill every time you're like.
This one, the hourglass.
Yeah.
This makes you could put a Bud Light in here and it would taste like your favorite beer. I guarantee.
It's just that last couple gulp when it like you have to tip almost 180 degrees to get that last little bit.
It looks like the boot. That's what I think. Looks like
I was gonna say you're clearly not German.
Beer fest.
Nice. Well, cool. Well, we're creeping up on 2 hours. We covered a ton of ground. Is there anything else you guys wanted to shout out or talk about, or any last nuggets of info or wisdom on swim jigs or bladed jigs?
I mean, it's there for the taking. So, I mean, I appreciate the opportunity for you reaching out with us, Rich. I mean, we love working with you. Got some stuff we can talk about off the books, but you know, the swim jigs and everything are, you know, it's handmade, it's hand tied, it's poured, and the other thing is, guess what? We're not out of stock.
There you go.
So
yeah,
if you can't find,
you know, and that's
if you can't find your favorite jig at xxxww.com, you can find it with us.
Sure. Cool. And I would say, like, if you're into swim jigs, especially swim jigs, that if you've always bought, you know, the mass-produced swim jigs, and you've I mean, they catch fish. I mean, I'm not saying they don't catch fish, but do yourself a favor and try a custom hand-tied swim jig from people like from the region where swim jigs were essentially born, and give it a try and see what you think. Give it an honest shake. I think you'll be impressed with the level of bites and the hookups and how well they fish. And I think once you try them, I think you'll have a new appreciation, and that will be your new normal. I guess that's my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. I was sold when I bought them, and I think you can get it for the same price as that you get those other mass produced jigs for, which is the best part. You know, you don't have to go out and spend $8 on a hand tied swim jig. You can get them for $5, and they're gonna last you longer. You can take the skirt and you can pull on that stupid thing, and it doesn't come off. I mean, you take whatever other kind, you put the band on it and you yank on it, comes right apart, and then those silicone pieces come out and you lose half your jig right there. You know, it just doesn't happen with these jigs. So like, for kids nowadays to be able to buy a jig and have it last longer for the same price, that's what we want, and it's going to perform better right out of the package. You know, so you get more for your money, and you're getting top quality, which is obviously what you want to get if you're going to spend the money. You know, so
yeah. And for those of the people that like to support the local economy, right? Like, these heads are poured in Wisconsin. They're tied in Wisconsin. They're painted in Wisconsin. Now, do some of the skirt collars maybe come from somewhere in the world? Who knows? But like, this is like a 90% like domestic made, tied, painted, shipped jig, right? So if you like, you know, you practice what you preach. If you're really all about that, you know, support the, you know, U.S. made products, this is your chance right here.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We don't make the hooks. I'm sorry. I don't.
Right. So, I mean, there's a few components that come from outside of the U.S., right? But It's, I mean, whatever. I mean, like there's almost nothing that you can get that is 100% in the U.S. anymore these days, right? Like it's outside of like agricultural products that are literally grown here, right? Like it's hard. I mean, like I think they say that like a Toyota is more American made than a Chevy at this point, right? I mean, like so, but
I can make you a toothpick 100% made in my backyard.
but yeah, I mean, like this is about as close as it gets in the tackle industry outside of like, I mean, people like, sure, they pour their own plastics, but that plastic probably isn't made in the US, right? So, I mean, like it's,
yes,
there's almost all some components coming from the global economy of some sort, but this is about as close as you're going to get.
Right. Yep. No, for sure.
So. Yeah, and you're gonna get the top level QC too. And that's like if there's something wrong with it, I get bags of stuff from him that he's like, this isn't gonna go out the door. And he gives it to me, because he knows I'll use it. But and I look at the stuff and I can't even tell sometimes is why. It was the same thing with Greg, and that's the beautiful part is if it's slightly off, it ain't gonna show up at your door. You're never gonna get it. So
sure.
He'll just redo another one.
Nice.
For you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice
Jay, you're gonna have to catch the replay, bud. You can rewind. You can hear about the giveaway, the discount, all that stuff. For sure. Logan, they're mustads, not Gamakatsus, but I mean, there's something I have my own jigs. I also use mustads for my flipping jigs and football jigs. And to me, I think that's important. Like on a worm hook or something like that, sure, a Gamakatsu or some of those hooks that are chemically sharpened have their place. But to me, those hooks are really hard to sharpen, right? And so when you attach, I mean, a mustad is a good hook. Catches a ton of fish, but they're also pretty easy to resharpen, and they hold like they take a resharpen really well. Some of those like chemically sharpened owner Gamakatsus, once you roll them, they're kind of dead. They're really hard to bring back to life. So when you attach a hook to premium components, whether it's a tungsten jig or a bladed jig or any of that kind of stuff, it's nice to be able to resharpen them. So that to me, that's a plus in a mustad over some of those other hooks like a trocar or some of those type of hooks.
And I will say, I mean, I've put the hooks literally side by side. If I put two of those hooks right next to each other, I guarantee probably 99% of your watchers could not tell a difference.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and
they
honestly, when they're eating a swim jig, it's like back here.
Yeah. I've put them side by side and I said, what's the difference? And the only difference that I have physically been able to see is that a 5-aught Gamakatsu is a hair smaller than a 5-aught mustad.
Mm-hmm.
Fire is the same. The shape is the same. The barb is the same. The eye is a slight bit smaller on a Gamakatsu than a mustad. And the hook point is slightly different. Beyond that, if I threw two on the table, you wouldn't be able to tell me what the difference was.
Sure.
You say, oh, there's a mustad and a Gamakatsu on the table. Which one's which? They're both 5-aught. Tell me.
Although if they're on the website, they would be the ones that are $1 more expensive.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's the difference.
So instead of buying your premium swim jig for $5, you would have to charge $6 or $7 for it with a Gamakatsu.
So,
yeah.
And I'm not knocking Gamakatsu. I'm not knocking.
Oh no, they're good. They're both good. That's not. Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not. Nothing to do with any of that. But I just, the industry standards are so weird that there's no consistency to them. So mustads 4-aught is different than Gamakatsu's 4-aught, is different than Eagle Claw's 4-aught, different than. They're all 4-aught, but every single one of those hooks will be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and mustad's good all the way through to the smaller hooks too. Like we use them, like all the way through our lineup on the hair jigs all the way up, which is really nice for us is to keep that consistency across the board too, and not have to jump around between different hook makers to get different hooks. They supply that whole lineup, which is nice for us too, is to keep the consistency for everybody. Is you're not getting a different hook on the hair jig than you are on the regular jig, the same name. So
Right. Yeah. The only difference between the swim jig stuff and say the hair jig and the Ned heads and stuff like that would go from a heavy gauge to a light gauge.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
those light wire hooks have been tried, true, and tested.
Sticky.
And not only sticky is one thing, but they don't break. That's the nice thing.
They're not brittle. Yeah, that's true.
They don't tend to. They might straighten out a little bit, but they don't tend to snap. Which is, some of these other people we've been talking to, and we've introduced them and said, hey, we started working with a guy in Tennessee and said, hey, this is the hook we use. This is what we build. We're going to send you our stuff. And he's like, oh, these are freaking phenomenal. And Kevin over in La Crosse has been using them for years. And on the river, he's like, oh, these things never straighten out on me.
No, I mean, in general, like the Northern custom swim jigs, the Super K hook is a little heavier than, I'm going to just say, a Bravarni, a Lethal Weapon, some of those other jigs that are popular. And to me, that the way I fish, I like that. Like, I like to lean on them. I like to use a little heavier the line than most people. I like to be able to bump up to braid when I want to and not have to worry about my hook straightening out. And you can do that with these jigs, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and this is on the light gauge Ned heads that I'm talking.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just talking about the swim jig, but for sure. No, I mean,
oh God, those freaking straighten out those heavy gauge hooks. I want to see the fish that you're catching.
Yeah, like you.
Yeah, that'd be great. You pull a truck with that thing, probably.
Yeah, these are.
I mean, honestly, sometimes that.
I mean, maybe with
not go anywhere.
Really heavy braid and a flipping stick and about a 15-pound mudfish, you might start to get in the ballpark, maybe.
Still, at the same time, they still stick them. They catch them, and they keep them really good.
Yeah,
that's with that.
And it's not an overly heavy hook either. Like they have no problem getting penetration with these either. It's just a nice balance, I think. So.
Yeah, so especially with that FG12 weed guard, I mean, there's no obstruction for them to clamp down on that thing, and as soon as they clamp down, boom, set the hook, and that thing is up and in.
So
that's a good point. I mean, I think that heavier weed guard sometimes that's why some of the swim jigs have to use a lighter hook, is because they're offsetting that that obstruction from the weed guard there to get more penetration with the smaller hook. When if you don't have you're fishing swim jigs, like if you're fishing like me, you're not fishing around a ton of cover for the most part. I don't and that's why I think we've stayed to that direction where we have a couple specialized lines for guys that fish heavier swim jigs, but you're really just not throwing around that much cover. I mean, just so you can ramp up the hook size and to get to lose the some of the weed guard. So it's pretty nice. So
that's one thing we didn't talk about, hook sets. What are your thoughts? Like, are you a lean and reel? Or do you like come over the top? Are you more sidearm? What is your mechanics? What do you think is the best for swim jigs?
Depends on how jacked up I am, how many times it bit me that day, and how many if I've lost any or not. I mean, like, I have some days where I go out and if I'm throwing to the side, I'm in the front, I'm doing like a sweep set basically, but if I'm pumping the jig, it'll be up and down. But I mean, most of the time it's like a sweep set, crank and reel, because sometimes when they bite the same, they come with you all the day. They're eating it and swimming at you. And that always changes for me on how I'm setting the hook, because then I try to get down to it before I feel them, before I lean into them. And then it's more of like a sweep set. But if they're just chewing it and going the other direction, I'll just give them a jab and just start reeling. So it really just depends, I guess, on the situation and how deep they are. And, everything changes every time, I think, fishing. That's the deal.
Yeah. And I think that's true. That I would say almost like a swim jig. It's almost reacting to what the fish are doing more sometimes. Like, there are times where you can tell they're almost running at you and you're just like, you gotta burn and like try to eat up as much as line as possible. And there's days when they're really eating it, you just feel that tunk, and it's just like, I got him. You just know it's gonna be in the back of their throat.
Yeah, and there's in those I think those same days when they're swimming with it is they're much harder to hook. I think that's just everybody has those days. If you're gonna fish any kind of moving bait, is some days are just harder to hook than others. And when they're coming at you at 100 miles an hour, reeling up and trying to just sweep into them gets a better hook set sometimes. I've had those days when they're just eating it wrong or you don't get the hooks in them right and you lose a couple of fish. But I think that's just, I don't know if hook set can change that some days. It's not how they eat the bait. It might be a color thing more than a hook set thing. So,
Yeah. So, Doug, good question. Just show you quick. So the Kraken comes with the blade detached. The hook eye is slightly open. If you can see that. And all you do is just slide it in that first hole. Right? Put it on there. Finish it ever so slightly with a gentle squeeze from your pliers, and you're good to go. So it's kind of a build your own, assemble your own bladed jig. And that's for patent reasons why that is the way it is.
So, quick sidebar.
Or you can do whatever you want with it, but that is my recommended way on how to attach it.
quick sidebar on that. So you want the mustad fast hatch to be pointed away from the
It's for best performance.
yes.
best. And in case,
don't put it on backwards. I did that one day in a hurry and I squeezed it shut and I was like, that's not ideal. I should have checked it before I squeezed it shut.
in case of failure, you can and reinstall it from the opposite side.
If it's not running the way you want, try flipping it over.
And don't be in a hurry.
I think you guys only have one size of blade right now. Is that true?
Yeah, that's correct.
What's that?
Yeah. Only one size of blade.
Yeah.
Currently.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Available on the website, yeah.
Yeah.
But it does allow you that if you maybe had some old blades laying around somewhere else, you could put them on there if you had some big blades from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that fast hatch, that's the coolest thing about it. I love that mustad fast hatch way more than that snap. It's not even a swivel, but the
clip.
The snap clips, yeah.
This is a much stronger connection. So for those people that really like heavy line or bladed or braided line on there, this is a much better connection, much stronger. If you're down in Florida, if you're fishing in Texas, fishing 50-pound braid, this clip is not going to give out.
Even if you're out in Pennsylvania throwing them for trout, you can put 4-pound test on that. But that connection is a 75-pound connection.
Right. Do the blades, are they all this? Are there different color blades?
We have 2 different blades. So we're running black nickel for darker blades and more nickel. Like
so there's the 2 color blades for your shad patterns. We'll have a silver.
So any darker color will be
right, and the darker colors will have kind of a black nickel shiny. Yep. So there's the 2. Kelly will custom match for whichever one is best fit for your color. Yes, the blade comes with the jig, JJ. All you have to do is put it on there.
It's like a worm on a hook. It's just fishing.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a straight blade, but it is a little rounded, so it is a little different than some of the other mark. And some people say that this is a more erratic blade. I haven't tested that perfectly, but I've heard that from people that say that you get more action out of this style blade.
I guess I've heard. So Corey and I were running side by side last weekend. I was hooking up a hell of a lot more. We weren't able to test if it was the color because we were running the same color pattern.
Mhm.
When we running a chatterbait, I was running a chatterbait. But we didn't get a chance to break it down to blade or trailer or pattern or any of that. So that was tough.
But what I'm talking about, or what we're talking about, is like this is
So it does.
most of the bladed jigs in the market will have this snap, which most of the time is strong enough. But there are times if you lean on that with a big enough fish or heavy enough line or a stiff enough rod, you can straighten or pop that clip. With this twist tied, heavier gauge wire, your line will absolutely break before you ever straighten that out.
Yep.
And that's what we're talking about. So for
Yeah.
those that like to power fish, big fish, heavy rods, heavy line, you're going to like the connection on that clacking.
And not only the fact that it's a heavier, it's going to give you a different noise as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
if everybody around you is throwing a jackhammer or a Z-Man original or anything like that, right, you can get a slightly different vibration, a slightly different profile, slightly different noise with this.
That made I was throwing a different blade on one of ours just to test that last weekend, just to see, and it was and Kelly was using our product and I was using a different blade product, and he outfished me 2-1. He caught 10 to my 5 that Friday from 2 o'clock until dark. And that was, I mean, I was throwing a green pumpkin color, like our new warmouth color, with a little bit of green on the bottom, and he was throwing that black and blue. But I mean, it's one of those areas where it's a good color. Both are good colors, and I think it was really the blade was much slower. Like, you know, you could see that is just a different action versus that quick action versus that slow 50-degree water temperature. Sometimes that little slower bite, you know, that square bill type thump might have been better for him, and he really did. He pounded them, and they were eating his bait much better than they were eating mine. So there was multiple different things that made me think that it was, you know, speed and thump related on that blade. So it's a thicker blade and it's a little bit wider. So it does hunt. Like I've noticed that it does move around a lot more than just be on a straight track. It does wobble and it does throw a little bit extra juice into the bait sometimes. So
nice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what the thickness of the sheet metal or the blade is offhand?
Ooh, I could
not right offhand.
do on that.
Yeah. Send an email. He'll get back to you.
Or 4,000s. I don't know. I'll take a look.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question though. It's just the standard one that you can get. So
no, the flipping jigs and the swim jigs have different style heads on them. I don't think you can get the clip directly. So cool. I'm excited. Is anybody else jacked up to go out and jack some fish on swim jigs right now, or is it just me?
I am ready to go right now. It's dark out.
When I put a Rapala on and go down to the trout stream.
Yeah, he can just walk out the back door. I mean, nice part. 50 yards, he's in the creek. So
yeah.
Nice.
I gotta go retrieve the one I freaking stuck in a log.
He's running out of his secret color Rapalas and he can't make those. So that's you should see him. You want to see him sweat? Throw his favorite color Rapala in the tree.
Is there any pike in that stream that you got to worry about?
No, God, no.
Good.
So
I will say, like,
this stream is not even as wide as your driveway, I'll bet.
Nice. So next week, we're gonna go Thursday next week because I got a bunch of hockey on Wednesday night. So next week's gonna be Thursday, gonna be tax day. I'm teaming up with Punch Fishing, and we're gonna do a special giveaway. We're gonna give away well over $100 worth of tackle and stuff on the stream next week. So make sure you set your reminders. Make sure you check my video, set your reminder. It's gonna be Thursday night. Some free stuff. So it's gonna be a little bit of a stimulus relief. I know it's not the original tax day. No, they moved it, but it's gonna be a tax day stimulus relief. We're gonna give away a bunch of stuff. So tune into that stream. Trailers on a 5/16 ounce finesse jig. Menace scrub. Mana Scrub goes on everything. That if you didn't learn anything tonight, always put a Mana Scrub on everything.
And the shaky head and everything. Like
Yeah.
Rich said, everything. Every rod you have should have some sort of Mana Scrub on it. That's my new theory. That's what I'm going with this year. I'm trying it.
Here's a good question. Why are there so many good jig companies in Wisconsin?
Because they all started here.
Because there's so much good jig fishing in Wisconsin.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's because the winters are so long and we got nothing better to do to make tackle in the wintertime. Yes, tax day is extended, but that's not going to stop us.
88 colors.
Yeah. And I feel like actually Wisconsin jig companies are the ones that have the most colors as well.
Yeah, that's because of winter.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Tax day is extended, but we are still going to give away some stuff, Sean, next week. So I know you don't need any tackle, but maybe tune in anyways. Hope you go out and catch some tomorrow, Shadow or soon. Yeah, chartreuse and white's hard to beat, especially if you got smallies in the mix, for sure.
Oh, you got to check out the new Bass Ackwards.
Is that color or what?
Yeah.
What's
2 weeks ago, the Bass Ackwards. It's the chartreuse instead of white.
Oh, let's look at it.
Oh, you saw it. I remember you commenting on that one.
Yeah, so instead of the white head, you got the chartreuse head, and you got a little more chartreuse and the less. You're basically flipping the color pattern.
Yep.
Exactly. So it's chartreuse white. It's just reversed, but
yeah. So instead of white chartreuse, it's chartreuse and white.
Yeah. So they've seen those white chartreuse colors. Throw them some chartreuse white colors.
Yeah. So if you like that bright, like where you live, the smallies crush that bright. There you go. This one's for you.
Those and a couple pink elephants, and you'll be going to work on smallies.
Yeah.
So yeah, when Kelly tested that pink elephant, it was funny. We took it out in the Wisconsin River, and he just started crushing them. And I was like, "Are you throwing that pink thing?" He's like, "Yep." I'm like, "Oh boy." I guess going into production, we had like 1 day with it.
So what I'm probably going to go to pool 4 this weekend, and I'm like confused. Like, do I want to throw this one? Do I want to throw this one? Do I want to throw like how many rods of swim jigs am I going to have tied on just for the first day out fishing?
Well, which part of 4 are you going to go fish?
All of them.
Are you going
all
up?
of them? I don't know. Probably going to go more down Wabasha and below.
Yep.
Might
Man,
as
I
well
don't
go
black.
down.
Black
well
and
go
blue,
into the
green pumpkin, Kanzoo's gill. That's all I throw down there.
Rich,
Yep.
if you get there when nobody else is there, this is the one you want.
The black, but I don't have any of the special trailers.
Well, make one. Couple of parts.
You have enough special trailers. I think that place is going to be on fire this weekend, like on fire. So, yeah,
But
they were already everywhere last weekend.
I
know they just weren't biting that great. So,
hey, only if the wind is blowing hard, I would throw that clack in. If it's not blowing hard, don't even bother.
Sure, for sure.
So that seemed to be probably, in my opinion, the biggest factor. The water temperatures were 4 degrees difference, but I think the wind had the big to do with it.
For sure. If it's windy, I totally agree. When it's more calm and slick, I'm more apt to be throwing a swim jig for sure. We talked about that earlier. Most of us straight fluoro most of the time, or mono if you're Kelly. Super clear watercolor gradations in your lineup. What do you guys say?
super clear water.
Super clear water.
I think that antique shad is one of the best ones that we have. Water that or the deep bluegill. Those were 2 that were made for
Much to my reluctance, I would say the deep bluegill.
That one's got a real translucent bluegill color, and then the antique shad is like a blueback herring type play. That's a really good one. And then and also the crappie, those.
Yeah, crappie's good. And then, your good old black and blue skeeter. You can't go wrong there.
Yeah, I would say in general, any of the colors that have a little more translucent skirts in the clear water. Yep. Go for ones that have a little less solid, right? Something that has a little more translucence, not so stark. I think those are your better bets in the ultra clear water. And then pair up your swim jig trailer, right? Go with more of a green pumpkin, go with more of a watermelon with your trailer. Don't go with something bright and that puts a hard silhouette. That would be my recommendation for ultra clear water. That one's
I like the smoke too, Rich, is a really good one.
Yeah,
that one's
smoke.
underused.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that one a lot on river systems. I caught my biggest smallie ever on smoke with like a KVD Magic Menace grub, because it's just like a total bait fish color, and that little bit of purple. Just if they're looking for a little bit of a kick of a color, that some of those colors that we have are nice, because you can take we put a lot of patterns that have 2 and 3 main colors in it, so you can take, like you said before, one swim jig and take 2 trailers with you and have 2 completely different jigs, just by taking the trailer off and going from a green pumpkin to a white trailer on some of those combo colors that we have, just to, ease the fact of changing that bait up, make it a different presentation for them. So,
yeah, for sure. Yes, JJ, this is about the only place I can go fish is the river. Nice. Almost 4-pounder. Congrats, Tom. Cool. Yeah, good looking bluegill. Well, I think we're a little over 2 hours. I think we've covered everything there is tonight that we need to cover. I think it's time to wrap this up. I want to thank you guys for taking the time to come on tonight. As we mentioned before, there's a pinned comments, Super K Jigs. The website is there. HellaBass 15. Save yourself some money. If you want to be entered in to win anything, leave a comment after the video's up. Catch the replays if you came late. Facebook, the podcast, YouTube. Appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you check out next week's stream. We'll be giving some stuff away again next week. And as always, here to help you guys catch more bass and suck less.